Welcome. My name is David Wilkins. I'm a professor here at Harvard Law School. I've been here for longer than I care to admit. This is my 40th year of teaching, and I'm also the faculty director of the Center on the Legal Profession. And on behalf of Harvard Law School and the Center on the Legal Profession, I want to welcome you to what will be the first of many events that we are going to do in preparation for a major and significant conference that we will hold on September 12th through the 14th of 2025 here at Harvard Law School, around the issues of law, leadership, and legacy, the impact of Harvard's Black lawyers on the legal profession and on the world. And both of those things are really critical to what we want to talk about. As we will say, this is the fifth time we've done this event. Actually, it's the 25th anniversary of the first celebration of these issues that we did in the year 2000. And I'm delighted to see so many Harvard Law School graduates. Undoubtedly, many are my former students who are on this webinar. But it's a testament to the importance of these issues that there are many people on this webinar who did not go to Harvard Law School and who understand the importance of this group of lawyers and this institution around the most important issues of our time, dating back now more than 150 years. It will come as no surprise to those on this webinar that this is a critical time for thinking about the question of what has been the importance of what has been achieved and the challenges that still remain since the Supreme Court's historic decision in Brown versus Board of Education, now just a little over 70 years ago. But it's also, and equally important, a critical time for thinking about the future of lawyers and the legal profession and their role in the world, whether that's around issues of artificial intelligence and technology, or the role of lawyers in democracy and the preservation of the rule of law, both here at home and around the world, whether it's about rethinking issues around globalization and how an increasingly global, interconnected, and multipolar world is affecting everything around us, and the role of lawyers in making globalization work in a positive way, or whether it's around the role of government and how should we think about the role of government and improving that role. All of these issues are front and center, not just for lawyers, but the world. And Black lawyers have played a critical and central role in thinking about the big challenges facing our profession and the world for, again, more than 150 years since the first Black lawyer attended law school. And that first Black lawyer came here at Harvard Law School, George Lewis Ruffin. And since that time, the lawyers who have graduated from Harvard Law School, the Black lawyers, have been central in driving the changes and the important developments that we have seen around the world in the public sector, the private sector, the nonprofit sector, the international sector. And Harvard has graduated more Black lawyers than any other law school, with the exception of the great Howard University School of Law. And these lawyers have gone on to play a transformational role in society. So I'm delighted to have the opportunity to say a little bit about what we know so far, and then to talk about what we intend to do in this coming conference. It's an important moment for me personally, and I I can't help but take a moment of privilege to say that, because my family has been a part of this legacy. Both my father and my uncle went to Harvard Law School, and my mother, although she didn't go, she spent a huge amount of time supporting my father and my brother, who also went to Harvard Law School, and me. And I'm sitting here in her apartment today, where she recently passed away. And I'm imbued by the spirit of that generation. She was born in 1928. My father was born in 1926. And all that they have achieved and wanted us to achieve in terms of the highest standards of excellence and the highest standards of commitment to our profession. And it's to my mother, therefore, that I dedicate this little talk. So let me just give you a little background. As I said, George Lewis Ruffin graduated from Harvard Law School in 1869. He entered in 1867. It was only 2 years then, and he was the first Black person to receive legal education anywhere in the United States. Went on to be an incredibly distinguished career as a judge and a public servant and as a lawyer. He was the first. In 2000, we decided that we wanted to celebrate all of the incredible Black lawyers who had graduated from Harvard since George Lewis Ruffin, and we assembled what at the time was the largest gathering of Black lawyers anywhere that had ever been assembled in a single place. That's a photograph of it. I called it a great day at Harvard Law School to emphasize that it was a great day for Harvard Law School because these graduates had gone on to achieve incredible success throughout the legal profession. And I'll talk a little bit about that. It was also a gathering that was attended by many Harvard Law School graduates of many backgrounds, addressed by the president of Harvard University, done in conjunction with a celebration of Harvard Law School alumni more generally, and imbued with the spirit of this gathering and this group, which is to work collaboratively and in cooperation with lawyers of all kinds to achieve the highest levels for our democracy. And we celebrated that by looking both at the group of lawyers who created the opportunity for that group of something like 600 or 700 Black lawyers who came together that day, as well as one of our terrific symbols of excellence. So we honored all of the living members of the Brown v. Board of Education litigation team, which was, as you will see from this picture, the highest level of excellence across all groups coming together to create what many people have called sort of the second founding of America, where we really resurrected the most important core principles of our Constitution and our democracy: equal justice under law. Mrs. Thurgood Marshall was there. Jack Weinstein was there. Constance Baker Motley, and William Coleman, all receiving the Charles Hamilton Houston Award from President Neil Rudenstine. But we also celebrated one of our current leaders, who is still one of our most important leaders, Kenneth Chenault, who had recently become the CEO of American Express, the first person of color to hold that prestigious office, and who has become one of the most important leaders in the corporate world. We came together again in 2005. And you'll see the numbers grew even bigger. Almost 700 or 800 people were there at that celebration. And there we celebrated a newly elected senator from Illinois, Harvard Law School graduate named Barack Obama. In fact, if you look very closely in that first picture in 2000, both he and his incredible wife, Michelle, were there. And of course, shortly thereafter, he became the 44th president of the United States, and she became the first lady of the United States. We also honored Randall Robinson, who in his dorm room at Harvard Law School created the organization that would become Trans-Africa, which played a pivotal role in ending apartheid in South Africa and creating a multiracial democracy that extends to this day. We then gathered in 2016, I'm sorry, 2011. I'm getting ahead of myself, to talk about leadership in the 21st century. And you can see again, the group of graduates is even larger. And there we celebrated the great Derek Bach, who is president of Harvard 2 times, who played a pivotal role in the transformation of Harvard, and in particular at Harvard's opening up the doors of opportunity for excellent students from all backgrounds, working along with Walter Leonard, who was really his right-hand man in understanding how to make Harvard even more excellent moving forward. We also honored our own Annette Gordon-Reed, who, as many of you know, is now a university professor here at Harvard, and who really changed the course of American history by the history that she wrote around Sally Hemings and other issues that happened in the early days of our republic. And finally, we came together in 2016 and dedicating to turning vision into action. There we had almost 900 graduates out of 1,400 living graduates at the time to come back. And here I was honored to be honored at that celebration, as was the late, great Charles Ogletree, who many of you know was such a pioneer in opening all kinds of doors of opportunity. And we celebrated the great Ted Wells, who is one of the most important lawyers of our generation, now a senior partner and co-chair of litigation at Paul Weiss. As part of these celebrations, we have always been dedicated to chronicle and document what has been the experience and the achievements of this extraordinary group of graduates. We started with a career survey in 2000. Frankly, it was the first survey ever of Harvard Law School graduates from any group that had ever been conducted in a systematic way. We had over 700 survey responses, and we asked about everything, about their experience, their careers, their understanding of race and racial progress, satisfaction, and everything. And we included graduates from the very first, although of course George Lewis Ruffin was not able to complete his own survey, to the class of 2000. It's contained in a book called A Report on the State of Black Alumni, which you can download for free from the Center on the Legal Professions website. And I just show you a little snapshot of the data so that you can see that Black Harvard Law School graduates are in every segment and every sector of our profession, from private practice to in-house legal departments, to business, to government, to public interest, education. We have, and Harvard is and should be very proud of the fact that we have sent leaders of excellence out to every segment of our profession and the world. We redid the survey again in 2016. We sent it to over 2,600 graduates at the time. We got a very high response rate, and we tried to look at what might be the difference between the graduates who graduated in the early cohorts, or relatively early after Brown, before 2000, and those who had graduated post-2000. Again, you could read all about this. It's the single most comprehensive source of data around any group of Black alumni, about their challenges and opportunities, what they have been able to achieve, and also what barriers they still face. Again, just to show you, again, an overall snapshot Here you see that, if anything, the careers of our Black Harvard Law School graduates are even more diverse than they were in 2000, with a smaller percentage in private practice, more in government, more in education, in nonprofits. And the list of outstanding graduates in all of those fields is too long for me to mention here, but is chronicled in great detail in that report. I'll show you just one other thing, and this is why, in many ways, it's critical for us to all come together in September to reaffirm the importance of this group of graduates, but also to encouraging people to go into law as an important career. So we did, this is a little bit of too much data, but I will kind of block it out for you. We asked two sets of questions in that 2016 survey, which we broke down by gender, male and female, and also by pre and post 2000. We asked first, would you still attend law school today, knowing everything that you know and including the challenges you faced as a lawyer? The overwhelming number of Black graduates of all genders and whenever they went to law school said, yes, I would absolutely choose to go to law school today. That's very positive. But then when we asked them, would you recommend law to a young person today, that number fell from 87% to 62%. And that graduates of the post-2000 era were much less likely to say that than from the pre-2000 era, 70% to 42%, and women were less likely to say it than men. That raises some very significant challenges for us to think about how to continue the pipeline of these excellent lawyers. And this has to do not just with things that are unique to Black lawyers. These sorts of numbers are the same as we found when we did a survey of all graduates of all law schools, which we recently published in a book called The Making of Lawyers' Careers. People are worried about the legal profession, which is why it's so critical that we bring this group and anyone else who wants to come to discuss these issues with us together to talk about these important times. So we're going to be doing this survey again. We think it's critical to document what have been the achievements and the challenges of this critical group of lawyers. And we please urge you to fill out that survey, and we will release the reports of it in CBA 5 in the celebration that we will be having on September 12th through the 14th. So that's enough from me. I want to now turn the microphone and the camera over to my former student, who I could not be more proud of, Cari Dawson, who's a partner at Alston Bird, who's agreed to be one of our celebration co-chairs, yeoman service, and she's been doing a just outstanding job. And then we're going to really be honored to have a conversation with my dear friend Ken Frazier, who's the former CEO and chair of Merck, but also a member of the Harvard Corporation Board, which, as you know, is the most important governing body at Harvard. And we'll talk a little bit about his perspective on these issues. And finally, Cari will talk about how we could all come together to support CBA. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and ask Cari to turn on her video. I'm going to turn mine off, and Cari's going to talk a little bit about what's coming up in September. Thank you, Cari.
Thank you, Professor Wilkins. I always laughingly say, even after 30 plus years of being out of law school, I still refer to him as Professor Wilkins. Well, welcome, everyone. I am so excited to be here. As was explained, I am one of our co-chairs for CBA 5, and I could not be prouder. I want to first introduce my fellow co-chairs who are also doing a terrific job supporting this incredibly important event. Bert Feeling, class of 1995, is the Executive Vice President, General Counsel, Chief Compliance Officer, Chief Sustainability Officer, and Corporate Secretary of Southwire Corporation. He is one of our wonderful co-chairs. We also have Dale Lefebvre. He is the class of 1998. He is the Executive Chairman and founder of 35711, a private equity firm. And then the final co-chair is Deirdre Stanley. Deirdre is an independent director and former public company chief legal officer. Now, we have a wonderful event planned for September, and I want to give you a sense of some of the big themes that we'll be focusing on in the coming months. One you've already heard about, the role of lawyers in society and how we impact not just this country, but globally, and serve as transformative leaders and protectors of democracy, the rule of law, and social justice. And in that regard, we'll focus on the role of Black lawyers and celebrating the excellence achievements, as the survey showed, across a variety of sectors, and how that leadership can continue on a forward-looking basis to transform society for the better. Another large theme that we're going to look at is artificial intelligence and technology and innovation. Ultimately, understanding not only how AI will transform and impact how we practice as lawyers, but how it relates to government, how it relates to economics, how it relates to politics, all the different components of our society and the impact on it. That is something that is critical for all of us. And having forward-looking, transformative leaders educating one another and sharing ideas around AI, technology, and innovation, and its responsible use, I think is going to be a critical and important topic for our programming. In addition, we're going to talk about the role of media as currency. Media has changed dramatically, and understanding its role in government, politics, economics, all of those things is critically important. And it too is informed by AI and innovation. So that's a big theme that we're going to be focusing on. Another, globalization. Globalization broadly, globalization looking at Africa, because at the end of the day, currently cross-border technology, knowledge, and cultural exchanges are rampant. That is our new normal. And understanding the opportunities that come with that, with collaboration globally and the sharing of ideas, is critically important, because this celebration, again, open to everyone who wants to have a robust exchange of ideas. All are welcome. We're going to be looking at graduates of the law school, but also the LLM program. Harvard Law School has a number of LLMs from all over the world, and bringing them with us together to talk about these important ideas and to get their perspectives and their experiences, and understanding the role of globalization and the part that we play as lawyers in that. That segues nicely into another really important theme, which is strategic alliances. I love the photo of the Brown v. Board of Education team that Professor Wilkins put up, because it's such a beautiful demonstration of the fact that historically, people from different backgrounds, people having different experiences, coming together, collaborating, and coordinating to protect our democracy, to ensure fairness and justice prevail. That is the norm, and we need to make it be top of mind for all of us on a forward-looking basis. So how do we build and sustain these coalitions and alliances? And that's particularly important now, because there is oftentimes a focus on our differences, on our divisions, but ultimately our commonality prevails. And we have shared values, and we have shared objectives. How do we get back to that? and the current environment. How does AI impact that? How does misinformation impact that? How does media impact that? Let's get back to the basics of how do we, at this time and going forward, develop those coalitions and alliances, and how do we control the narrative about the value of that? And then finally, what I love about the celebration of Black alumni and being a lawyer and being a graduate of Harvard Law School is that we have an opportunity to engage in blue sky strategic thinking. All of these different experiences, all of the subject matter expertise, all of the knowledge coming together to think about how we can pursue power and make transformative change to ensure that our democracy and the ideals of democracy are maintained and protected, that there is integrity, not just in the legal profession, but in our society, and that there is justice for all members of society. We need to think a little bit outside of the box and think about what does that strategic blueprint look like? Because at the end of the day, what we hope this celebration will do is it doesn't end on September the 14th, 2025. It serves as a catalyst to move forward with ideas that help all of us in the United States, globally, and help all people. Because one of the things that I would say is something that we must realize. We are all interconnected in the fight for fairness and justice. I mean, Dr. King put it very simply, right? Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And so by coming together as a group and talking about these big picture themes and developing programming around that, we're not only helping to celebrate one another, but helping to make this world a better place and to ensure it's a better place for all. And, you know, with that, and why CBA is important to me, I want to turn to Ken Frazier, ask him to please turn on his video and to unmute himself. As Professor Wilkins said, he is the former chair and CEO of Merck, current fellow of the Harvard Corporation, and someone who was wonderful to me at a very early point in my career. So I have to acknowledge and recognize that and to say publicly, thank you so much for being a role model and then really not just talking the talk, but walking the walk by having lunch with a young lawyer, starting out her career at Merck in your beautiful office. I still remember like it was yesterday, taking the time to share his wisdom with me and to have a positive impact on my career. So Ken, why is CBA important to you?
Well, thank you, Cari. And I just want to say to everyone within my listening, I feel honored to be on a discussion following Professor Wilkins and Cari Dawson. Of course, I'm intimidated by the brilliance that's already been displayed in this call. But to answer your question, what makes this important to me is I think this is a once in a great while chance for us to come together, to reclaim, to reaffirm, to restate, and to reinforce our values and what we as the Black alumni of Harvard Law School and others who join in the fight that we are in the midst of have contributed in the past. And it was wonderful again to see that picture of those bold social engineers who came together around the Brown versus Board of Education decision, what we have contributed, and most importantly, what we will contribute going forward to the nation and the world, and what we will do in this moment when our democracy and the institutions that are meant to support that democracy are hanging by a thread. We, as the Black alumni and interested other friends and alumni, have an opportunity to come together to reinforce again what we stand for. To quote my good friend Brian Stevenson, this is a time where we need to stand because we're being told to sit down. It is a time for us to speak up because we're being told to be silent. And we can't afford to remain silent. And we must stand up for the values that we hold dear. I want to just share a personal experience that was extremely meaningful to me. Going back to the CBA number 3 in 2011. I had just been named a couple of months before that CEO of Merck. And let me tell you, things were going really badly for me at that time. The stock was way down. I was being criticized by many observers of the industry, including my own investors. And I'll never forget showing up at the CBA number 3 and the sense of belonging, the sense of support, the ability to alleviate my own personal doubts, my own personal stress, to get away from that feeling of isolation that I had in the echo chamber of Merck and Wall Street. All of those things were incredibly important to me. I remember coming away from Cambridge realizing people had my back at a time when I was hearing nothing but criticisms. And so this is not only great for our ability to strategize, but it's also great for our own sense of community and personal growth.
Ken, that's such a wonderful story. And of course, you inspired all of us. And you have continued to do this. And I don't say this to embarrass you, but you had then taken that incredible platform that you had as the CEO of Merck, and worked on a number of issues that are of broad scale importance, whether that was making drugs available in Africa, whether working on things like river blindness or sickle cell anemia or HIV/AIDS, but also about thinking about the critical role lawyers play in democracy, and how that has to not be a partisan issue, an issue around some particular group or other. And I wonder if you could talk a little bit both about, the role of Black lawyers in that understanding of lawyers in democracy, and kind of how you see the key challenges moving forward that we might be able to address at this gathering.
So thank you for the question, David. Let me start by saying that Black lawyers in particular have often been, in effect, as people say, the canaries in the coal mine.
Our great friend Lonnie Guinier, we should reference her on that.
we have been the guardians of democracy, not just for the Black community, but for everyone. What the Brown team did was they established the civil rights of all Americans, not just the civil rights of Black Americans. I think that lawyers in general, and Black lawyers in particular, have a special role to play with respect to justice, with respect to liberty, and with respect to democracy. Right now, I think it's pretty fair to say that all Americans are in serious trouble. And I think the greatest risk we face is the risk of exhaustion. So many things are being thrown at us at one time that it's easy for the average person to just throw up their hands and give up. I come out of corporate America and I see all of these corporations knuckling under. Or you saw the thing about the opinion page in the Washington Post today, where the opinion editor resigned rather than to live under certain constraints. If the average American sees large corporations complying with things that are not correct, the average person says, how can I resist? Well, that's where Black lawyers and their allies come in. it's very important for us right now to stand up to support not only each other, but the infrastructure of our communities and of our democracies. In some ways, I think it's most important for African Americans who are lawyers to stand up because, again, most people would be willing to surrender to the current governing philosophies in this country, which we know are wrong. You look at our press, it's now to the point where when you see outrageous things happening, you don't even see the press reacting anymore. I think in some ways, we have to be the guardians. We have to be the ones that are the goalkeepers that are ensuring that our democracy continues to stand, and we need to strategize in ways that are effective, not simply to be righteous about these issues, but to be effective in defending our democracy.
I would just add to that, at the end of the day, what Ken has highlighted is the role of lawyers in educating the public about democratic principles, checks and balances, separation of powers, independence of agencies, the rule of law. And one thing I want to just add to that is a very patriotic American thing to do.
Exactly.
Patriotism, love of country, that includes identifying where a country has fallen short, where its leaders fall short, and critiquing that. That really reflects the essence of being true American values, as opposed to censoring truth and banning teaching of this country's history. We can't turn a blind eye to that, and we need to understand context. And America was built on, and patriotism is reflected when we look at criticizing government, leaders, authority figures. I mean, just think about what our founding fathers, and I'm including our founding fathers as people of color, it was challenging, saying, let's live up to the ideals and principles of what America is supposed to be, what the language of the Constitution actually reads, and making sure that that actually occurs in practice for the entire community.
So,
Amen.
thank you, Cari. Ken, I want to kind of now ask you to reflect on a different part of both your own history and including current work that you're doing, but that in some ways is reshaping everything, whether it's from the economy to democracy to the practice of professions to education. And that's really thinking about new technologies, things like artificial intelligence. I think we all know this is coming. We all know that it's going to reshape everything. And yet we also know that we want to preserve also core commitments and values. And we want to make sure that it creates a world that's even more consistent with our values, our core values of equality and freedom and dignity of the individual and rule of law and justice than the one we have. And yet there are many challenges to that. And I wonder, as you think towards this celebration, which we want to be focused on the core issues that everyone is affecting, how can we begin to think about that, and what might be a particular lens that we as Black professionals might have on those issues that would contribute to everyone's understanding of how to move forward in this time?
So thanks again for the question. That's a very, very important question. It's a very complex question. I'm going to talk about it from two perspectives. Number one is, as you know, David, I'm very much involved in workforce development. And I think it's critical in our community that we develop people who have the skill sets to earn family-sustaining wages in a world of artificial intelligence. I love, for example, the MasterCard Foundation, which has a pledge to train 30 million African young people to be able to do important jobs by the year 2030. Africa, of course, being the place in the world where there's the greatest population growth. So we want to make sure that I think in our communities, we build the infrastructure that allows our next generation of people, our young people, to be successful in that environment. I think the other part, and this relates to something that Cari just talked about, is we have to guard against the proliferation of misinformation. And accurate information is critical to our democratic system. I think if we don't put the right guardrails around artificial intelligence, what we will do is we will further reinforce the discrimination. I'm going to use the right word, the racism that has always been a challenge for African Americans. My friend Sherilyn Ifill likes to say that racism is the gateway drug for America. And I worry a little bit that if people are not sensitive to the kind of bias that has historically been a part of our society, and of course, I'm not saying we haven't made tremendous progress. I'm not saying that at all. But if we're not guarding against the implicit biases in our society, I think those things can be strongly reinforced and become a part of the social fabric without us realizing it.
And Ken, that maybe also leads to something that Cari so eloquently talked about, and you mentioned in your early remarks, but how do we talk about these issues at a time in which people are being pulled apart, and in which even mentioning issues has been thought of as divisive, and yet people are saying divisive things on all sides. And that's not, in my view, that's not just about reclaiming something from the past. It has to be about reimagining ways of understanding in the future, because of course our society has changed.
Right.
When you and I grew up, Ken, the world was literally black and white.
Right.
Today, even among the Harvard Black population, we ask a question, which we're going to re-ask again. And what other forms of identity do you identify with in addition to being a Black American? And, you know, the percentage who identify as Africans of some kind, Caribbean American, multiracial. There is a huge proliferation and in our pluralistic democracy, which in a way is very exciting, that all populations are becoming more pluralistic, that our world is becoming more interconnected. And yet, of course, that makes it even more complex to talk about and to build coalitions. And I wonder if you could just say a few words, because you've been so eloquent in thinking about these issues.
Well, I think what you're talking about is really important. And I think that it goes back to something that Cari said very early. We have a lot more in common than the things that divide us. And I think the most important values of the country, you mentioned pluralism, universalism. If you go back to the civil rights movement, it was based largely on the idea that all citizens needed to be entitled to the same equal rights in this country. And I think the challenge that we face right now, if you look at this last election, was, and it's sad to say that, and I hate to be so political, but I can't help myself, that the coalition that President Trump was able to put together was the coalition across demographic groups, geographic groups, and other groups that Democratic supporters dreamed of having. And so the question becomes, how do we articulate a vision of America going forward that brings together the majority of Americans and makes them feel that they are indeed a part of this whole thing, as opposed to simply one group being pitched against one another? I think the second point, David, is you start off by saying, when you raise these issues, when you raise these critiques, you're very often accused of being divisive or unpatriotic. And I just want to go back to a portion of a speech that Martin Luther King made in 1965, where he addressed this very issue in front of a majority white audience. And he said, most people today are silent because of fear. fear of social, political, and economic reprisals. In the name of God and the interest of human dignity, for the cause of democracy, these millions are being called upon to gird their courage, to speak out, to offer leadership because it is needed. History will have to recall that the greatest tragedy of this period of social isolation and transition was not the vitriolic words and violent actions of the bad people, but the appalling silence and indifference of the good people. So for me, this is really about us girding ourselves, coming together to rebuild our communities, but at the same time, fighting against the forces that would divide our country. You look at the budget that's now being proposed, you look at the cuts to Medicaid, those are cuts to poor people. That's basically saying we no longer value the lives of the disadvantaged and the poor in this country. We have to be able to pull together those kinds of coalitions to protect all Americans, if you get my drift. It's important to remember that this is sort of at the apex of what started many years ago with the notion that government is the enemy. And therefore, anything that we can do to destroy government is good. And I think that those of us who look broadly across the country understand that that can't possibly be the case, and that we really have to take a stand for ourselves and to take a stand, particularly for those Americans who are disadvantaged.
And I just want to add to that really quickly part of that goes back to the misinformation, media, and narrative. People, unfortunately, and this goes back to the role of lawyers in educating people about what are the facts, what is the truth, and making certain that there is strategy for getting the message, the truth, the facts out to people so that they may be educated about what is really going on and what these policies and practices and how they impact them, and holding people accountable for that. And, it's a very simple saying. I'm from the South. And my papa, that's my mom's father used to say, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. And that is, we've got to start listening to each other. I mean, one of the things I love about being a lawyer, I'm a litigator. A lot of what I do is investigate and research. But ultimately, what am I doing? I'm listening. And we have to start having and creating an environment in which civility and respect for other individuals and their perspectives, and a curiosity and taking the time to actually listen and hear and talk to each other, that needs to be the new normal. The normal of not listening, working in an echo chamber, only going to media or messaging that affirms what you already believe, that we need to try to move away from and move forward in a direction of respect, civility, and listening with those 2 ears, and understanding we've got 2 ears for a reason and only 1 mouth.
I think you're absolutely right. It's really important to recognize what was just said. The basic answer to why we are here, to Cari's point, is that many Americans are fed up and tired of all the broken promises that they've heard. They believe our country is on the wrong track. And for those of us who are privileged to be in our positions, as Cari just said, it's important for us to be able to restore public trust. It's important for us to be able to create understanding and to understand why people feel the way they feel.
And Ken, that is so powerful. And Cari, thank you. I'm going to turn it back to Cari in just 1 minute to talk about how we move forward on this important event and how people can support it. Because without our support, this event won't happen. And Ken, you've been one of our most critical supporters in everything that we've done, including personally with both Cari and I. And I wonder if just you might say a few words about why this is important. I mean, I'll just say, I hope and anticipate that we will have over 1,000 people, maybe 1,200 people. In fact, I want it to be so big we have to worry about space. because this is such a critical time and the reasons that I said before, but it takes each individual to come forward with their time and their money, quite frankly, and their ideas, most importantly, to get us where we are. And I wonder if you might just close by using that one mouth, which you use very well throughout your career, to say a few words about that.
Well, you said exactly what I was going to say, which is that this is a critical time. It's important for us to come together, to strategize, and to fortify one another. And we can't look for others to make this possible. We have to actually demonstrate agency as a community and to make sure that this event happens, that it is fully supported, that we are able to bring together, particularly our younger lawyers who are out there struggling in law firms and other places. They need to be reinforced the way I described coming here in September 2011 and coming out of here feeling completely invigorated and supported. I think it's really critical for us as a community to ensure that this opportunity is one that we don't miss. It is more important today with the outside forces pushing against what we're trying to do than it ever was before. I'll close, David, because, I was raised in the church, and I think a little bit about Nehemiah. And Nehemiah is a great example of what it means to build with one hand and hold the sword in the other hand. It's really important for us to build up our government in our communities and to fight against the forces that would tear those things down.
Amen to that. Thank you. Thank you so much, Ken. This has been so informative, and is indicative of the kind of conversation that we will have when we are together and why it's so important. So, Cari, if you could say a few words, thank you, Ken, about how people can support us moving forward.
Sure. So information, where can you get information about this amazing celebration? Go to hlscba.com. That is the official HLS CBA website. It's live. You can get all sorts of information, and from hotels to sort of countdown to registration, information about the co-chairs, and soon information about programming and who our speakers will be. It's really a one-stop shop for all things CBA. That's going to be updated regularly in the coming months. Registration, how to register, will go live in the coming months. And as Ken just said, and as Professor Wilkins has emphasized, this celebration doesn't happen if we do not have your support. And that means your financial support, your support in terms of ideas, your time, your energy, your efforts. But I do want to emphasize that this event is completely self-funded. No financial support is provided by Harvard Law School. So we are depending upon the support of those who believe in CBA's mission. So how can you help? How can you support us financially? Sponsorships. We have wonderful sponsorships available for this conference. There is information about the different levels of sponsorship and what benefits are provided. Again, this is an event in which all are welcome. We welcome participation. There are no limits on who can or cannot participate. Everyone can participate and support this wonderful event. There are details about sponsorships on the website I referred to. There is a Be a Sponsor link that you can see to do that. You can also support through your individual gifts. You can give directly to CBA. Again, on the website is a Make a Gift button, and you just click on that. If you've already given to HLS, you can contact the Alumni Development Office and ask that your gift be directed to CBA. We know that there are many incredible Harvard Law School alumni from all walks of life out there who want to support this event. And you can direct your funds that you have given, that you have pledged, to go to CBA. So we welcome that as well. We need your time. There are wonderful committees that need worker bees, as I like to say. And having been a worker bee for all the CBAs, I can tell you it's a great opportunity to connect with people, to meet people, and to work towards a common goal. We've got a program development committee. We have sponsorship and giving committee, visual arts committee. So those are some of the things that I think you ought to be looking for. Go to the website, contact us if you're interested. And I know we've been quoting Dr. King a lot, but his words are so very current now as they were then. And so I just like to end in terms of talking about CBA and how you can help by quoting from a speech he gave at Harvard Law School, where he says that somewhere we must come to see that human progress never rolls in on the wheels of inevitability. Human progress comes as a result of the tireless efforts and the persistent work of dedicated individuals. We must help time and always realize that the time is always right to do right. So I hope that you will take the time, put in the effort to do right. And I think doing right means supporting CBA. So back to you, Professor Wilkins.
Cari, thank you so much, and thank you for all you have done. This effort has been going on now for many months, and of course, now that we're in 2025, we are really moving into high gear. Anyone who has ever been at one of the prior celebrations will underscore that it is, as Ken said, one of the most energizing and meaningful and invigorating and thought-provoking events that you can possibly attend. And I think given the circumstances that we are in today, both as a community, but also as a profession, and also as a country and as a world, it will be even more so. This will be the largest gathering of Black lawyers. I am quite confident that has certainly happened. It will happen this year, and that the supporters and people who are equally as concerned about the challenges that we are discussing will make it even more vibrant and important, and its message will resonate around the world. As Cari said, we view this, as we do all such events, as the beginning, not the end. And quite frankly, we want to find better ways to connect with all people who are concerned about the critical issues that we will discuss and want to contribute to creating a law school, a legal profession, a country, and a world that we can be proud of. So my thanks once again to Ken Frazier for taking time out of his still incredibly busy schedule. I think he's gotten in some ways even more busy since he's stepped down from being CEO of Merck in a variety of areas. To Cari Dawson, who continues to be a leading lawyer and exemplar of the excellence of this group, and taking time out to be a part of this important event and to help us plan it and organize it. And I'll just close with this. This is a history that Harvard Law School and the profession and the world justly celebrates in many ways and should continue to do so. But the work is just beginning, and in some ways the greatest challenges, but also the greatest opportunities are yet to come as we rethink what will be the next important period of building excellence in a pluralistic society committed to the rule of law, to freedom, to dignity, and to equality for all. I'm honored to be a part of this since the beginning. I look forward to working with all of you and to beginning the next generation stewardship of this incredibly important event. Thank you very much.